This is recording, by the way. What is the film today, Becky? Tell us.
We watched Black Klansman directed by Spike Lee. Came out in 2018, just a bit after the Charlottesville riots in the United States, or yeah, I guess you could call them riots. But the movie takes place in the 1970s, pretty much after most of the civil rights leaders had been murdered and assassinated, like Martin Luther King as well as JFK. But the movie is about the first black cop in Colorado Springs, and the fact that he was able to dupe David Duke into believing that he was a white man and was able to infiltrate the KKK, or the organization.
As he likes to rebrand.
Exactly. And the movie itself is kind of a backdrop to what was happening pretty much 2016, 2017 after Trump was elected. The movie itself kind of drops some hints about David Duke's political goals in the 70s to try and rebrand the KKK, and alludes to one day having someone who would probably be part of the KKK in office. And so when we're watching the movie, we're kind of realizing the world we live in now, but also kind of seeing what's happening in the 70s, where there's a black power movement, a white power movement, and the clashing between those, and how one man tried to risked it all to infiltrate the KKK. So yeah, that's the movie.
So what was your first impression of it? Or like, what did you think about it, I guess, before or even right after when you watched it?
I kind of have an understanding of the different historical points for Black people, obviously, from like the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, just like what was happening. And I find that what I was expecting was a bit more exploiting of the issues that were happening. I was expecting a lot more like, I don't know, I guess rose-colored glasses, and a lot more violence, and a lot more like crazy costumes because it's the 70s. But I felt like the whole movie was very toned down in order to actually give a message, rather than to just show off the time period, show off that it's Black people versus white people. It was really a good way of showing that what he actually did was showed a character who was Black, who used his Blackness and his understanding of whiteness that was created based on like the juxtaposition from Blackness to infiltrate the KKK using their preconceived notions. And I thought that he could have, like, Spike Lee could have made it into an action film. He could have made it a lot more gory, but I think he kept it in a place that was that you were able to actually take in the information, which I was surprised by. And that's what I liked. And I also thought that the period costumes were pretty cool. When you see pictures of people who are like the post Black Panther movement, you see a lot of like afros, and you see Ron's character like always touching the afro and like checking it out. And the glasses, those suits that really like accentuate the shoulders, and the very sharp like I don't know what they're called. Collars, yes.
Yeah.
And I thought,
like their whole like silhouettes is like
exactly. There's that one scene when they're at the Kwame Ture talk, and everyone's in that leather jacket. And what I find interesting is how well Ron's character, or Ron, is able to blend in, mostly because he has that leather jacket and the fro. You know what I mean? So I kind of felt like maybe Spike Lee was maybe commenting on how the look isn't enough to actually be part of the movement. There's more to that, because if a private detective can infiltrate based just on the look, then, you know, where do you stand as a movement? So yeah. And you, what were your first impressions as a person,
As they-
as a human being?
I think we need some caffeine, but it's fine. We're gonna perk it up. I really enjoyed it. It was my first Spike Lee movie. Like, I always hear people talk about films that he's directed. I've never seen one, but this is the first one, so I think it's a really good first introductory for me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what to expect, and I was pleasantly surprised. Like, for me, I didn't, yeah, like I was saying to you before, that I wasn't expecting it to be, actually, I didn't know what to expect. But for me, the humor came in, and at some points weaving it into like the more intense scenes was like a good balance. And I thought that was interesting. I think it carried the film well. And another thing was like the music and the atmosphere was really nice with the costumes and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that they edited it was so interesting. Like, they had like I don't know, like splicing and cuttings, and they did like, when they were referencing the movies of like what are the old movies?
Shaft and
Shaft
the
and
movies about the pimp.
Pimp.
Superfly.
Yeah, and then
Superfly.
like they put in the posters so that like that we
Yeah,
know.
that was cool. It just like slid in, and then you had the visuals, especially if you hadn't seen it before. I thought that
Yeah,
was really cool. And
I
there was also, sorry,
sorry.
but there was that one scene where at the end where the phone is ringing and he leaves,
Mm-hmm.
and you still hear the ringing. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was a really cool like choice of sound. And I think he did that a couple of times in the movie, which is, I think is, it's cool because he's adding a bit of flavor
Mm-hmm.
to something that you would just kind of pass over as just the phone ringing, but you see that phone ringing is so daunting on him, you know.
Yeah, I think he lingers. Yeah, like the editing with sounds, he like does some interesting things with it. Like, he like lingers it on, whereas the scene goes on, and then like
Hmm.
we're still like
Or like
thinking about
sometimes
that
you
sound.
hear, there was one scene, I can't remember what it was, I don't know if it was gunshots or something, but there was a scene where the sound just completely didn't go with the scene,
Mm.
and you can recognize that there's a reference to whatever's happening in the world. I can't remember exactly what that scene is,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah.
And even when I think you were talking about the first infiltration that Ron did was like going
Hmm.
into Kwame's like speech. That
Hmm.
like that was like very interesting, when how they like put like the black audience faces like individually, like kind of like fading in and out, like
Hmm.
while they were like
It was
pondering
very
about this.
powerful.
Yeah, I was like, wow. And then the way the actor actually like enunciated his words, I was like, that's very 70s also. I would say, like, the way that
Exactly.
I was like, wow. So like for
And
me,
I thought,
really well done. Mm.
I think that when you see, I think it was interesting how that moment where you're listening to what Kwame Ture, the actor, but he's also a real person, but what he's saying, and how all these people are like looking at him, and everything kind of fades away. Even the afros fade away. It's just them and just absorbing this person who's telling them to take their power. Um, and yeah, I think the way it was filmed is very artistic, and a lot of interesting choices are made to add to the film, not just to make to add to the story more so than just to make it very interesting, because there's so many of those shots that he could have put where it's like, I don't know if you've ever seen an old 70s film where it's like the zoom in real fast, the cut, and then like the fighting scenes or something like that. But I think the what he filmed it in a very Spike Lee-esque sort of way.
He just balanced it out so evenly, right? Like the tonality of it,
Hmm.
it was like serious and like touching at the same time. It could like, when Ron was talking to Patricia like about light humor stuff, like he was able to like interject humor to it. It's like,
Hmm.
well done, well done.
I think I really feel as though the movie got its point across, and also lays some humor in order to get you to catch some points, like when David Duke is talking about how black people say ara instead of r.
I was like,
And
what?
he's struggling so hard to think of an example, and
Ara.
he's like, ara, are
Did he say
you
like
ready?
the chicken?
Are you ready for some fried chicken? And the guys are like dying of laughter. And I like how it comes full circle at the end when he's calling and finally tells him that he's black.
Yeah,
And he's like, ara,
ara,
and then you just see
ara.
David Duke in his empty room, just, wow, I've been got.
Just faded away. You know that meme where it's like fades? Like,
So bad.
what are your favorite scenes? Like, or what are the scenes that like really stood out to you?
There are a lot, but I think the one scene was or it was a couple of scenes. It was the initiation of the new members into the KKK or organization versus the Harry Belafonte's character, or the actor,
when they
acting as Jerome Turner, when he's talking about the lynching of Jesse Washington, and how how the two come together, and how it was done by the KKK, which was so accepted at the time that they even let kids come out of school to watch a lynching of a black man, like it was a carnival. And I'm just listening to that while watching these people being initiated because they fear that they're losing power, that that they're losing, I don't know what they feel like they're losing, because all through the movie they're like, oh, there are too many black people in films. Oh, now look, there's a black police officer, they're taking our job, just things that are even said today. And just seeing that scene, and you could, as people are reacting and talking about it, you see these people who are ready to go and kill black people, while and it's I just felt like this weird sort of, the fact that they're planning these things, the fact that they have so much hatred and they don't know why, that they form a group, to go and kill black people, just makes me sick to my stomach.
I like the fact that it's the way that the director, like, he juxtaposed these two scenes and weaved them together. It was the fact that black people, it's, I don't know, like there was so much more, like you said, real reason of like fighting back against this injustice versus where the white supremacist group was, it was just made up ideologies or that they perceived were real threats.
Exactly.
Like, because at the end they also like watched that Birth of a Nation movie. It was like a fictional movie that obviously did a lot of damage, but versus like where the Jerome Turner speech.
Jerome Turner.
Yeah, he was speaking about something real that happened, with like real, like
death and pain and suffering while he's hiding. Because someone he knows is getting murdered and he could be next, because the fact that there would be no police officers that would help you, it's just so effed up. And something after they stopped talking, I think it was during the moment where the whole organization, the whole KKK, after everything, is watching Birth of a Nation, and they're so fired up about this movie, and they see this movie as reality. They see this movie as a depiction of what's happening to white people, and all the characters are in blackface.
So
so it's white people acting.
Yeah, it's basically, like super meta in the fact that you're kind of making up these or
these perceived
exaggerating
problems.
These like problems to scare yourself.
Exactly. And I don't know, it was just that scene was very interesting in the fact that they were so riled up by a movie which they hold as history,
Mm-hmm.
as truth,
Mm-hmm.
because that movie reignited the KKK, a resurgence of people going back into the KKK. And I think it's a movie. You know what I mean? A lot of people say, it's just a movie, it doesn't really matter. But there's a reason. I mean, even this movie where Spike Lee talks about how, there's power in film, the fact that he puts that there, because he didn't necessarily have to put so much of the birth of a nation, but it's important because this is the power that they get, these sort of lies, this sort of, I mean, because I understand film when that movie was made. I think it was early 1900s when that movie was made. It was a new media. There was not really a way of understanding that this is fake.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But
like people didn't understand that
you know what I
much.
mean? It's almost like a
cinematics.
documentary. You know what I mean? And so I feel as though people need to take those things seriously now. And it's not really a big statement, but from seeing how, I mean, and I can't really say that people from the KKK are still watching this movie and still riled up by it, because if they are, they have some deeper problems they need to understand, because it doesn't make sense. Like, you can't take a movie from the early 1900s and
but
say,
I would say that, let's say, for the fact that maybe even when Trump just makes up a problem, like the caravan, is that what he calls them? Like the immigrants, like with the crossing the border with guns and drugs. And like when he just makes up things like we need to build a wall and people just believe it, it's kind of the same thing. Like if you're making up something and you have a platform and you're putting it out there to an audience, there are going to be people that just kind of are going to capitalize on fear, right? And that's well, Donald Trump was in it, in the ending scene. It was like,
I mean, the whole point of what David Duke was saying was that we need to rebrand our white supremacy. We can't go around in hoods, we can't do cross burning.
How was your weekend?
It was pretty chill. Ate a lot, shopped a lot, which I shouldn't have, but it was good.
Black Friday
and your
sales?
Weekend? Too many Black Friday sales.
I'm just kind of I feel bad a little bit that I dragged us both down with that one suggestion.
That one link.
It wasn't a suggestion.
That one link.
I know. I was like, should I get this? And then I was like, maybe I shouldn't tell Vicky, because Vicky is weak and
just a little weak. It's only after I start spending that I'm like, you know what? I already started. Might as well continue.
But that's the worst.
Which is not the mindset to have. But
Let me start.
And what did you do?
Sorry. Yes.
What did you do this weekend?
I was being a woman and bleeding and just having the weekend of my life.
Yeah, don't you just love those moments once a month?
The best.
For way too long.
The best. It reminds me that I'm wasting my eggs. I should be making babies and procreating for the world, apparently. Thank you, Mother Nature.
So, have you tried any new recipes?
No, but have you?
Yes, I made a gin and tonic with rose flavored simple syrup, and it was really yummy.
Ooh, that sounds nice.
Yes.
Actually, I didn't make anything, but I bought this thing. Not a sponsor, but this is it's a organic sparkling tree water. It's
so
good.
So does the tree sparkle, and that's what happens, or?
Yes, the tree flies and milks itself into a basket.
So green.